Hello and welcome to Las Blancas Podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of Las Blancas. We are back and we are going to discuss a game that had a lot of goals, 10 of them to be precise. And it was a game that swung in both directions. It looked like the game was done and dusted. Then it looked like the game was going to end in a draw. And it was against an opponent that, sort of our games against them always tend to be this end-to-end chaotic sort of affair, and that has become the theme. I'm talking about our game against Madrid CFF in the league. We won the game 7-3, which is a wild scoreline if you imagine. And if you watch the game, it was absolutely wild because we were 2-0 up, then it went 2-1, then it went 3-1, then it went 3-3. Then it stayed 3-3 until the 80th minute. Then it became 4-3. Then it could almost became 4-4. But then we capitalized and we scored four more goals at the end in the final 10 minutes and we won the game 7-3. It was a game on my birthday as well, which was pretty nice to see us win and win by a big margin. In fact, this was just the second game involving us that saw 10 goals. The first one was a 9-1 loss to Barcelona in our very first ever game as CD Tacon. Uh, but yeah, crazy game. Kanita, I know you had your problems writing the immediate reaction for this one. I'm sure you struggled with it. How you feeling and what were your thoughts on the game initially?
Madrid derbies, am I right?
Yeah.
I Something always has to happen in these derbies, and even last time we won 1-0 barely. It was a terrible game. I remember it was
Yeah.
right after the Madrid derby against Atletico, and it was even worse than the game against Atletico, and somehow we won that. But yeah, I mean, this game wasn't good either. It was very annoying. And I think that so I was live tweeting as well, and I said at some point the fact that I was concerning myself in the second half over Milan Chavas warming up for a good chunk of the second half. It really tells you a lot about that, second half of the game. Very annoying after the free came. So it was like I don't know, like 30 or so minutes. Well, no, 30, like 25 or so minutes of nothing. And we were just trying something, not really. And it was really annoying. But yeah, we did run riot. Both teams were kind of competing in who had the worst defense. Our defense, aside from the free goals, we did really badly in defense as well. So it
Yeah.
was really weird. But I really, I was thinking, yeah, I'm kind of complaining about, the writing the article and 10, listing all the 10 goals, and I always forget them in order. I always have to watch back, for a few minutes. But I'm thinking, yeah, they ran right on your birthday, so yeah, it was definitely a fun game, eh?
And like I said, like the game really went back and forth. Like there was not one moment. Initially, when I was watching it, I was like, okay, it's 2-0. It looks like it's going to be a comfortable win and everything. Then it became 2-1. I'm like, okay, we might have to do a little bit more. Then it became 3-1. I'm like, okay, this is done and dusted. Then 3-3. And then towards the end as well, like it was 3-3 till the 80th minute. And then we scored four goals in the final. Like there was a lot of added time as well, like
Yeah, eight
8 minutes of
minutes.
added time. So
Mm.
in the last 18 minutes, sort of, we scored uh, four goals. And even when we were like 5-3 up, 6-3 up, there were moments where, it looked like Madrid CFF might crawl back if they get one here, because it has happened in the past, not maybe as Real Madrid, but we all remember that game against Deportivo when we were Tacon. We were 3-0 up until the 75th or something minute, and then we ended up losing 4-3 in the final 15-20 minutes, which is crazy. So I
Yeah.
think this game had sort of that vibe where, we were messing up defensively a lot. They were messing up defensively a lot. But at the end of the day, we won. I'm happy. All these games remaining now, they don't have much at stake. To be honest, like unless Barcelona somehow drop to lose one game and draw another, or somehow don't fail to win multiple games till the end of the season, I think the title is very difficult to envision at this point. But yeah, I mean, let's see what happens. In fact, this was just the fifth time in the league that we have actually scored 7+ goals in a game. Only once actually we have managed to score more in a single game, which was that 8-1 win against Espanyol. And something interesting that I was sort of going through was looking at how many games in the league have sort of had 10+ goals in Liga F, and since 17-18, I think it's only just like 12th game where there have been 10 or more goals in a single game. And this was just the second occasion involving us. Like I mentioned before, 9 of those occasions involve Barcelona in some form. But yeah, I mean, happy for a big win, happy for such a goal fest. But honestly, it raises a lot of questions about our defense. Because if you look at the goal, a cheap giveaway in the box, then a easy ball over the top, and throughout the sort of the game, we kept conceding possession in dangerous area, and then the turnover, the transition defending, especially from the left hand side, or just a simple ball over the top, was very, very bad. Like it was genuinely very bad. I'll quickly read the lineups and then I'll come to you, Kanita, to take your thoughts on our defensive problems in this game, or the defensive issues in this game, and how we conceded three, which could have very well been five, to be very honest, if they could have put those balls away over the top. But I'll quickly go through the lineup. It was Misa in goal with a defensive line of Antonia, Maile Lakrar and Maria Mendes as the centre back, and Yasmin starting as the left back. A midfield double pivot of Toletti and Angeldahl, which we'll talk about, which we'll get to uh, after this, and a front four of Atenea, Caroline Weir, Alba Redondo, and Naomi Feller sort of leading the line. Those four interchangeably played uh, across. Like usually it was Atenea on the right. That is how the first goal also came along. And Redondo was also attacking from the left, coming inside a lot, and she scored the opener as well, getting in behind at the far post. So the front four operated sort of fluidly, but that defense, it's not a bad defense, but it looked really bad. What did you make of it?
It was a weird setup. I know, like I was especially paying attention from the first half. I mean, second half was really messy. At that point, it was really hard to keep up with either of the team were doing. But I know I've seen like throughout the first half how we set up with the build up and all that, and mostly we were with the free at the back. And I mean, the whole game we had the center backs switched this time. So Lacra was on the right, which well, yeah, it's her position, but
Absolutely.
he has the center back switched all the time, and then he
Yeah.
just switched them back in this game. And I don't know, Lacra and Mendez in this game were just terrible. I mean, I just have to
Yeah.
say, like, both of them, I've never seen a worse game from either of the two, especially like Lacra. I don't think we ever saw a bad game from her. Genuinely
Yeah.
shocked. And I know, like, so okay, back to the back free thing. So I noticed like Yasmin was at the front all the time. So she was just right there. I mean, fair enough, we didn't really have a winger on the left side, so it was like between Weir and Redondo going, wide. Usually Weir and then Redondo falling back to the number 10, and that kind of stuff. And so yes, it was all the time in the front. So we only had the free, center backs in Antonia, and it was really odd. I don't know. I mean, when we lose the ball, Toletti had to, run back as well and, help to recover the ball again. And I guess we just lost control in the second half. And those two major giveaways, well, yeah, the first goal as well, and it came before the end of the first half, 41st minute, I think. So I mean, the pass back that we had passed back by Lacra, and that kept happening throughout the game, not just in that first goal, just those weird back passes, and Misa panicking a lot of times because of them, and it was weird. It's like they lost focus for the entire game, and obviously Madrid capitalized on some of those. And yeah, as you said, it could have been more for them if the ball didn't go over a couple of times. But I don't know, like this was a competition on whose defense was worse. Honestly, our defense was terrible, but somehow theirs was worse. They even had some even worse giveaways inside of their box, and we
Yeah.
capitalized on them as well. So it was very annoying from what I saw from our defense, really.
And I think the difference that made their defense a lot more worse was the goalkeeping. I think the
Hmm.
goalkeeping was absolutely horrendous from Madrid CFF. And yeah, I think you're right about this being the worst game of Lacroix at Madrid. And I think you bring up a very good point about how we were building up and how our left side was structured. So, like the reason I brought up and mentioned specifically that first goal of Alba Redondo, and was just to mention that you have to understand the positions she was taking, because Feller was technically named as the number 9, but she was also drifting everywhere. She was coming down to receive, coming deep to receive the ball. And in those times, it was Redondo who was proactively attacking the box, right? Like she was the first one to get into the box to sort of, based on that right hand side combination, she can sort of enter and she can score the goal. And that is what happened in the first goal. But the problem here is when we lose the ball in such situation, the out ball for them is so easy. They can just play it onto the space on our left hand side of the defense, which was the Yasmin side, because Yasmin was so high up, because she was to provide width in attack, because Alba Redondo was coming narrow and attacking the far post. That is what made matters worse for us. It obviously did not help that our defenders had their worst game imaginable, where they were not even able to defend 1v1 situations properly, and their passing, simple passes, seemed off somehow. But yeah, I mean, I think it was also a bit of a structural issue, because in the season so far we have seen Redondo as the striker, but mostly we have seen her in a new role which has been of a number 10, right? And this performance in this game, Total decided to put her on the left hand side for her to sort of attack the far post and be that threat at the far post for meeting those crosses and everything. So yeah, I think that change also had an impact on it. And yeah, definitely, I mean, we saw it in all the goals, and like I mentioned, it can very very easily be 7-5 or something, but luckily it wasn't. So yeah, I mean, that happened. Another important point that you brought up, and like I mentioned, we need to discuss the midfield pivot, because it was Toletti and Angeldahl, and now Angeldahl was playing quite advanced. She was playing in that right half space that she has played for Sweden and she looks very good in that right half space when she plays for Sweden. She looked really good here. And what happened was, when with this this combination of Atenea, then Feller coming to that side, I think this game our entire attack, or a lot of our attack, basically came through the right hand side, which is not the norm. Like, usually we attack from the left hand side whenever Linda Caicedo is starting and everything, but this game our right hand side was very active, or equally active as our left hand side. And the reason was Angeldahl. And when we were sort of overloading that right hand side, she also got to showcase her long range shooting ability. And it was great. Like, she scored two fantastic goals. Could have been three. She almost had one go past the post. So it was really nice. What did you make of Angeldahl's performance? And then I'll come about a little issue I had with the midfield and this aggressive role that Angeldahl had.
Yeah, so I don't think that it was surprising to see that the right side was working better in this game. I mean, we just talked about the left hand side and how, the kind of empty it was, and all that. But Angeldal, a lot of times, she does fill in the hole on either of the sides she does play on. This time was on the right side, and with, as you mentioned, with the Atenea there, and Feller obviously in the center. It flowed really nicely. Like, I saw a lot of chemistry between her and Atenea quite a few times. But yeah, those two goals. I know after the second goal, the audience on the Stefano chanted Angeldal MVP, MVP, MVP. And it was and she did get the official MVP of the match. But also a quick digression that was very clearly heard on the Zone's broadcast, because they did not have the commentator. They had some error with the sound, and I enjoyed that very
Yeah.
much. Listening to the public on the Stefano, really fun. And yeah, they were chanting Angeldal MVP, and they got it. So yeah, I think it was deserved.
Yeah, it definitely was. I think it was a very good performance, and I think this is the role that I've said in the past as well, and I think we have seen everybody who watches her or follows her in Sweden also sees this, that she really likes to play in those half spaces, facing forward, facing the play forward, and we really got to see that, and I was quite happy with it. The only issue I had with this was, since Toletti also has a proclivity to sort of attack, and Angeldal was given this very aggressive role to always attack and be in those attacking half spaces. I think our transition defense suffered because of that.
Mhm.
And it suffered heavily because our transition defense was nowhere to be seen. Like, we did not have, if they won the ball in midfield or on that right hand side, it was just a simple ball over the top and it was done. Yes, our center backs had a terrible game and maybe they can deal with it on 85% of the times. But in this game, they could not. And it really exposed us. When they won the ball back, there was an easy pathway for them to get behind our defense. And I think that was a big issue in this game. But yeah, I mean, it's over. We won. So, this will be put in under the rug. But this is an issue with this particular midfield combination, especially when you're playing this aggressively, or you want one of your midfielders to be positioned so aggressively high up on the pitch. So yeah, I think that was something that was worth mentioning. Angeldal obviously really excelled in that. She was getting that space to shoot from the zone 14 or the zone right outside the edge of the box uh, in the center. And I think she does really well shooting from long range from that sort of distance. And I think we got to see that in the first goal. Then she almost scored another one, which went wide, and then she scored her second goal of the game towards the end, which was also again a really good finish. So yeah, I mean, completely deserved. But I think the goals are done, the transition defending is done. One position that was a sort of a issue, and something else happened at the end as well. So Olga came on in the second half, and towards the end, like right towards the end, it looks certain that we are winning the game, and Olga is dealt with a heavy challenge from one of Madrid CFF's player. It was Barbara Gorado, a very bad challenge, which it could have been a serious injury, and there was a very angry reaction from Olga to that. Like, she was really pissed. She went at the player, and this sort of it looked like I've never seen her this way, reacting this way to challenges, because she herself is a very passionate player. She likes to get stuck in. She likes to go hard in challenges. But this one was a very rough challenge, and she got really mad at it. Understandably so, to be honest. But there was something else we need to talk about. When she came on, there were chants of Olga in the stadium, and part of the reason was that this could very well be Olga's last season at Madrid. So, do you want to tell us what's going on in the rumor mill? What is looking likely to happen, and your thoughts on this whole situation?
Yeah, so a few days before this derby, we had a rumor breakout out of nowhere,
Yeah.
that Olga was going to PSG, and it was like, okay, we saw that at night. I know I sent you that rumor, and we laughed like, haha, no way. And then in the morning, we had more media sources confirming it, like Coppe talked about it, also Relevo later on. So it looked like legit, right? And then later on, people in the fandom who have contacts with the club and all that. So yeah, it is legit that she's apparently leaving the club, and it's crazy. I mean, I don't know. Like, we took half a year to get a backup left back for, and now we're left without our starting left back and captain, obviously, which will be a transition, right? A very big one. But yeah, and I know that people were thinking, okay, so let's see how Di Stefano receives Olga in this game. And she was coming on, and they chanted, like you said, Olga, Olga, and she got subbed on. And yeah, that's very, very dangerous challenge happened. And I actually agree with her reaction, but
Yeah.
it did surprise me to see her like that, because I think even Irune was there to pull her away. She literally had to pull her back, like, the 17-year-old. And I know that there were some mixed feelings in the fandom about that as well. Like, how can you act like that as a captain, and then like leave the club like that? And I'm thinking like that's a pretty normal reaction to a challenge like that was not penalized by the ref either. And yeah, I mean, she had her teammates drag her away, but yeah, again, normal reaction. And I think most of the fandom was agreeing with her reaction, but some no. And I understand both sides, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shocker, honestly. Like you mentioned, the situation is so bizarre because we almost played more than half of the season without a backup.
Mm.
Then we get a backup, and then your first choice is leaving. So you're again left with just one player in that position with no backup, and it's crazy. And honestly, like, Olga was the last player I thought would be in this situation, but yeah, I mean, it looks legit. And if that happens, that we have been starting to be linked with numerous names like Niam Charles. We have been linked with Lo Bogart from Paris FC as well. Nerea Nevado has also been a name thrown around, but I mean, for all her flaws, for all her defensive issues, for everything, I think that the part that we will lose the most is the captain. I think she represented the club really well. Uh, she took responsibility. She was always there. Her fitness was impeccable. This entire season, like we always used to say, Olga as always at left back because her availability was insane. She rarely gets injured, rarely misses a game. So, to have that sort of a reliable player in the squad is great. But I hope that it doesn't come to fruition, but it looks likely. And let's see who replaces her and what happens in the future. But that's something, we'll take care of when things look a little more concrete than they are right now. But yeah, if it comes to fruition, I think I'll definitely miss Olga because she has been here since the very start. It's been Olga and Misa who have been here for a very long time alongside Atenea. Yeah, alongside Atenea as well. So, these three players have been there, have seen a lot with the club. So it's gonna be difficult, but yeah, let's see. We'll see about that when it happens. Okay, so 3 more games to end the season. Next up is Granada, then Tenerife, which will be our last home game. And then it will be Valencia in our final game. Currently 4 points behind in a similar situation like the men's league as well. But let's see. I mean, it's difficult to see Barcelona drop points, but they have done so twice this season. They've lost 2 games, so you never know.
At home.
We just want them to do that 2 more times and then to win the rest of our games to sort of do it. But let's see what happens. As always, we'll be back to break it all down for you in the next one, which is against Granada. So yeah, until next time, Hala Madrid.
Hala Madrid.